What if the headaches, the fatigue, the tight chest, the jaw clenching, the stomach issues, the random aches, the exhaustion you keep pushing through aren't just physical? What if your body is carrying messages your mind has been trying to outrun? Today, we're talking about what happens when mental health shows up physically and why listening sooner may be one of the kindest things we can do for ourselves in midlife.
You found the Midlife Revolution Unleashed, the space to embrace your wisdom, reignite your passions, and move boldly into what's next. I am Coach Wayne, the VIP coach.
And I'm Coach Stacey M. Lewis. We're here with insights, stories, and strategies to fuel your midlife journey. So take a breath, lean in. Your revolution starts now.
Stace, good day. Are you ready for the revolution, Stacey? That's the question I ask.
Absolutely. I am ready. I tell you, that music still makes me happy, and it just makes me really excited for each and every episode of Midlife Revolution Unleashed. We certainly want to welcome our listeners to tonight's episode. And we're here to have some real conversations. Coach Stacey, a nonprofit executive, a midlife women's coach, and a lover of God and his people. And I'm joined by the one, the only, and the esteemed Coach Wayne Dawson. Introduce yourself to the people.
Thank you, Stacey. That was so nice. I want it twice. Do it again. Kidding. Hey, I'm Coach Wayne, the VIP coach, and I work with seasoned men of color to help them navigate midlife so that their second half can be their best half. Stacey, this is special. We gotta just give kudos to the folks who have been downloading our segments. And this particular quarter, we've done some serious behind the scenes work and we've accelerated the download. So we want to just let folks know we're celebrating. We're past 1,000 downloads. Yeah.
We're so excited.
Thanks to you. And Stacey, this episode, as you know, is brought to our folks by VIP Transformative Living and
Coach Stacey M. Lewis Coaching and Consulting. We're excited tonight because these are some of the things that so many of us as midlifers, so many of our clients as coaches, and folks that we just kind of come across are dealing with these issues of when mental health starts to show up physically.
Yeah, Stacey, a lot of times we show up and look good on the outside, but our house on the inside needs some arranging. And so it is when mental health afflicts us. A lot of times people aren't diagnosed, so they don't even recognize that they have it. But the mental health that we're talking about sometimes spills out and we see it in the way of the body somatically. We see things happening to us. So tonight we want to talk about those kinds of issues.
Yeah, I think it's also important to acknowledge, right, that neither you nor I are mental health professionals. We are coaches. You are becoming a therapist. And the reality is that, we're not talking about mental health diagnoses, right? We are really talking about the day-to-day experience of how your mind, your body, and your emotions are working together and how that often shows up as stress, as fatigue, things of that nature, right? That then really impact your mental health, your ability to focus, your ability to really prioritize, things of that nature. So I just thought it important to frame that so that, those that are in the mental health field and or have some mental health diagnoses understand that we're very clear on the distinction and want to make sure that we're adding value, not adding confusion.
Yeah. Now, midlife is that period where a lot of things become more intense. We become more intentional, more deliberate, because we kind of look and say the time and the clock is clicking. And so we talk about intensifying stuff. It's often the time frame or the time when physical tension, that sort of thing shows up for us, so we walk around with backaches, we walk around with stress, headaches, that sort of stuff. And part of it is because we don't necessarily know when to let go.
Yeah. And we get so caught in the day-to-day grind that we stop paying attention, right? Your body has been talking. And sometimes we simply stop paying attention. We might tend to separate mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical wellness. But we're all one person and they're deeply interconnected. We have to recognize that in this season of midlife where caregiving stress, workplace pressures, grief, hormonal challenges. Let me just repeat that one. Hormonal challenges, financial implications, all of these stressors that we're managing, and it impacts our physical and our mental health.
Yeah. Stace,
Hmm.
a long time ago, when I was doing college and working, I'm Jamaican. I had 3 jobs of mine and I was in school full time. I was so stressed out.
Mm,
And I visited a doc because my stomach, was bothering me a lot. We'll talk a little bit about the vagus nerve, which is like your second brain, they say, in your stomach.
mm,
And the doctor told me at the time I was experiencing some IBS symptoms, irritable bowel syndrome.
mhm, mm.
And at the end of the day, it was all because I was carrying a lot. And, a lot of people in midlife, Stacy, that's their load.
Yeah.
We talked in previous episodes about caring for those right above you, parents and
Mhm.
the elderly, and those behind you, the kids, grandkids. When you carry that kind of load, plus you got to carry yourself, you can experience a lot of physical ailments,
It was a
symptoms.
great example, Wayne, a great example, right, of how the stress, what you were dealing with mentally and emotionally showed up physically. And that happens so often. And I think it's a great segue into or deeper into this when the mental health shows up physically. Let's talk about some of the symptoms that kind of show up when we're dealing with some mental health showing up physically.
Well, Stace, one of the things that I know, and to your point, I'm working at getting my license to do the diagnosis piece. I'm doing it, but getting it signed off as we speak. But one of the things that shows up with a lot of clients, both in the executive space and the clinical space, is exhaustion.
Mm,
People, people are sleeping, but they're still feeling exhausted. Chronic exhaustion, brain fog. These are things that we carry oftentimes too much off, and got to learn how to see that signal.
yeah, you mentioned digestive issues, right? How often do we come across friends and family members that are dealing with digestive issues and have totally disconnected the issues, the symptoms from the things going on in their life? And I can tell you, Wayne, one of the things I've struggled with, actually, it started in college. We're going to go way back. It started in college, but it is it was skin flare-ups, right? It's in college when I was diagnosed with psoriasis, and in
Mhm.
college when I was, having all of these breakouts and things. And they were things that I had never dealt with before. And here it was, I was really dealing with so much stress, in particular that freshman and sophomore year, that it just manifested
Mhm.
in my skin. And I think, again, it's one of those symptoms that folks, say, oh, I have a little rash, and might tend to let that go. But even those are something to pay attention to.
Yeah, I want to go back to that, and Stace, you're absolutely correct. People minimize what's going on. Oh, it's
Yeah.
just a little bit. I'll get over it. I'll bathe in a little ointment or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I hear a lot of symptoms around poor sleep hygiene, and I hear a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people midlife saying, "Oh, I don't need as much sleep." And what does that mean? Oh, I can do with 4 hours a night. I've never seen any research that supports that, right? So we got to have our sleep. We're looking at, some people say we're supposed to sleep 1/3 of our lives if you divide up day into
Mm-hmm.
threes, right? Into thirds. But here's the deal. You can tell when you're carrying a lot and you're short on rest, real rest, from proper sleep. The brain fog, the muscle spasms, the tension headache, Stacy, the memory issues and stuttering. These are all real, and I see them. I've experienced some myself as a person who oftentimes like to stay up late and push through the night.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the sleep is real. And when you start to pull some of these symptoms together, it can often result in brain fog, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
like, what was I getting ready to do?
Mm-hmm.
Can often result in pain sensitivity, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
feeling like your whole body is almost under attack because of the level of stress that you're dealing with.
Yeah. And here's a thing that pops up too that really bothers a lot of midlifers: inflammation. So you can
Mm,
have inflammation away from your joints. Inflammation can hit you in various ways across your body. And oftentimes that has a lot to do with your gut as well,
yeah.
where the stress, we talked about the vagus nerve, which researchers say they've discovered is like your second brain. Sometimes people will get nervous and you feel it first in your stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
when that sends signals to your brain saying, hey, there's a warning here, you got to pay attention. You got to chill out and keep going, Stacy. Some folks have so much acidity, right?
Yeah.
That it causes the inflammations, which you see that resembles arthritis and those kinds of ailments.
Absolutely. So if you've just hopped into this episode, we're talking about when mental health shows up physically. And I would say, Coach Wayne, that, suppressed emotion does not necessarily disappear.
Mm-hmm.
It tends to linger as tension, or, like you're saying, inflammation, can show up as agitation, or just disconnection and depletion. And we want to make sure that we are sharing with our listener these signs that we might tend to ignore, but that shouldn't be ignored.
Yeah, yeah. So I can talk about the fellas. There are things that we are good for. Men don't cry. Stop
Mm.
complaining. You're bickering like a sissy girl.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I hear it, I see it. And how does that come across? Because if we're suppressing emotions that are real, you know, it's gonna find its way out sooner or later somewhere, and sometime it finds its way in, and that's where we see the symptoms imploding on us.
Yeah, I think this whole idea of emotional suppression and jumping into survival mode, things of that nature, you talked about, what one of the real kind of taglines for men, and often for women, in particular women of color, Black women, we've been either identified, have fallen into the model, or have accepted the model of being the strong Black woman, which
Mhm.
means that we are taking it all on, we're carrying it all, and that stress is showing up as that, that cortisol based fat around the midsection. It's showing up in, the thinning hair and just the headaches. It's showing up in that moodiness that we talked about. And so I love that you kind of highlighted some of the gender uniquenesses, so to speak, or the differences, because they're both pointing to that emotional suppression, right? If you're not crying, if you're not letting it out, you're suppressing it. If you're holding on to more than is yours, you're suppressing it. And these are the ways that mental health, all of that stress, all of that mental load can show up physically.
Yeah, a lot of these are learned behaviors too,
Mm,
and we pick it up along the way. Baggage. Some of it we throw away and some we keep. And so a question that I would ask is, what did I learn to disconnect
mm.
from, or how did I learn to disconnect from my needs, and what do I need to do to reconnect?
Yeah. Yeah. Another good question is, what emotions have felt unsafe or inconvenient or like too much to express? How often, right, do we feel emotion and we're like, no, I don't want to break down now.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't want to ugly cry in front of all these people, or, even in front of myself. So
Mm-hmm.
what emotions might feel unsafe right now?
Mm-hmm. We do a strength assessment when we work with folks. And a lot of times it is amazing what people see as their strengths.
Mm,
And we have to ask the questions: are these strengths serving you now, or are they just egotistical stuff? And if they aren't serving you, you got to let them out so you can be vulnerable and express emotions so you can be healthy mentally and as a result physically as well.
Yeah, when we talk about strengths, I was actually having this conversation today with a colleague, right? We also do strength assessment both in my coaching practice as well as on my job.
Mhm.
And every strength has a counterpart, right? It has a shadow. That's one of the terms they use when talking about archetypes, right?
Mhm.
So your strength of harmony, right? Wanting to keep things in harmony also has the possibility. The shadow is the people pleaser, right? Because
Mhm.
you want to keep things in harmony. And so it's important to, like you said, acknowledge your strengths and acknowledge the shadow or the underbelly of those strengths and
Mhm.
how that might be showing up more so than the positive attributes of the strengths.
Yeah.
Hey, it is Dr. Audrey. We just want to say good evening to Dr. Audrey, one of our favorite listeners. It's so good to see you. I hope all is well.
Yeah. Yeah. Doc, come on home. Come on home. Stacy, you talked about suppression, survival mode. As a culture, people of color spend a lot of time in that survival mode arena.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as such, we are always at this peak in terms of emotionally functioning. And that really can burn us out. And that means that mentally we are on the edge. Anxiety is a big issue, depression is a big issue, just burnout. And by midlife, if you've been doing this for 40 years or more, it shows up, and you can start feeling, we go into the doctors, our pressure is up. We, like you said, we
Mm-hmm.
not being able to manage our weight gain and that sort of stuff. It's
All of
important.
it.
Yeah.
All of it. It all comes together. And what we're encouraging our midlife audience to think about is really to notice these physical symptoms, right? Not beat yourself up about them, not spiral around them, but to notice them. Notice these symptoms and start to pay attention, right? Right. We talk about we cannot heal what we don't reveal. And so to really begin to pay attention to what's happening with your body and get curious instead of critical, right? It's so
Yeah.
easy to be critical of like, oh, I have this weight, or oh, not sleeping well, something must be wrong with me. Well, something could be wrong with you, but it doesn't do you any bonus to be critical of yourself, but to be curious about these symptoms and what's happening.
Yeah. The I had a dental visit today, and we were talking about Invisalign, and the dentist said, I'm not saying you're old, but when you get to your age, the body responds much slower than it did when you were 25. And so that's so true for everyone who always going through the midlife experience. Things that you would pull off and get away with, like what we used to call bleaching, staying up all night long to party and hang out. Try doing that in midlife, and the crash becomes very evident. The
Well,
chronic, yeah,
I couldn't agree more, Coach Wayne. I'll just tell on myself. So I'll tell on myself and not anybody else. So recently, really good girlfriend came to visit, and, I went into Philly and got a haircut, and, I took a couple of days off work, and we just decided to have fun, right? Just some good old fun, which I strongly encourage. Some good old fun, whether expensive, like, I don't know, breakfast on the 60th floor of the Four Seasons, which is what happened, or whether free, like walking through the field of bluebells. Well, both happened, but also what happened was we were together. And so, what a great opportunity to enjoy a bottle of Veuve Clicquot, our favorite champagne. Well, I would say we over enjoyed, like we were 30. See, and this is where the problem came in, right? So there we are. We are just enjoying our Veuve Clicquot. We are having all kind of snacks and treats and binge watching TV shows. And in the morning, we woke up feeling like do 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 do.
yep.
So
It's mhm, yeah. It's telling. It's hard to deceive the body and to be coy about those stresses. Get
right,
your beauty. We used to say, get your beauty rest. And some of the things that we're talking about is figuring out how you can allay the stress by doing things. And one of the things for sure is physical exercise.
yes, yes.
Just walking. You don't have to go do Iron Man or Iron Woman, but
Hmm.
walking. Some folks now under their desk, they have the pedals and they cycle, or standing desk where you get up and move around. Breath work. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. So many opportunities. Let's take a quick pause for the cause and say good evening to Delane. Hey sis, good to see you. Thanks so much for supporting us. And I
Yeah.
just want to say, Audrey says, we got to change the definition of fun sometime. And so as we age, we want to acknowledge that fun can still be had, but not necessarily like we were 30. To your point, Coach Wayne, another gentle practice when thinking about how to tend to your mental health and allay or mitigate some of those physical symptoms. I love that you mentioned walking. For me, prayer really does work. And it is, I know for some it is that meditation, just the sitting. For me, it is the prayer. It is the turning it over, right? It is recognizing that all of this is not mine to carry.
Yeah. Stacey, here's one that really is worth mentioning because
Mhm.
we are bombarded so much with news and
Mm.
all virtual reality, so to speak. It's hard to decipher what's true and what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
And part of it is limited exposure because mentally that can have a real negative and draining impact on your psyche.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean, even if you were to be watching the weather and you heard that there were thunderstorms rolling your way, yes, you are prepared for it, but it makes you anxious, right? And today, with all that's going on, the news, first of all, is slanted. There is inkling of truth in
Wherever
that.
you're watching. Right.
Yeah, but
Right.
it wears on you, and oftentimes you don't even realize it because it becomes a norm. So that's one of the things that we would recommend, along with, so that's reducing overstimulation.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and I would add, Stacy, learning to name your emotions and be honest about it. If you're feeling some kind of way, call it what it is. Don't
Mhm.
minimize it. Don't use euphemisms. If you're really feeling anger, speak the truth. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah, Wayne, in the field of work that I'm in, my day job, we talk a lot about toxic positivity.
Mm,
And because, in the cancer space, right, there are some that feel like, oh, okay, just be hopeful, or, don't be sad, or think positive. And that we are not talking, toxic positivity, or just trying to really say like, okay, get more rest. The
mhm,
reality is we're really encouraging you to dive into a deeper state of awareness about what is happening within you, and
mhm,
not simply say to yourself, oh, I must be getting older. So, so headaches are normal, or rashes are normal, or, feeling stressed out is normal. We're saying, understand kind of what safety feels like to you, what overwhelm feels like to you, and how you can really begin to connect, reconnect. So many of us become disconnected, just plowing through, but reconnect with who you are when you feel something, right? So, in a certain situation, you mentioned hearing the news and there's going to be a storm, right? Now, thinking about for the two of us, for you and I, you being in Florida, me being in Pennsylvania, you're going to have a storm, right? Two totally different experiences.
mhm, mhm.
And, so how we respond, to your point, to those experiences, to what it is we're hearing, pay attention.
Mhm.
Pay attention. You don't have to wait for your body to break down, right? To start paying attention.
Yeah. And speaking of that, so we create rituals. We do some preventive work. Some folks do body scans, make sure you get
Mm,
in line to get your health checks. Most doctors, PCPs, have a direct connection with a mental health person that they can refer to. I know Audrey gets lots of referrals from the PCP that we see.
mm,
And that makes sense because here's the thing, there is a body mind connection. They're not separate, really. The mind drives the body oftentimes. And they say, in terms of your physiology, if you move your body in a way that makes you feel upright, it
mm,
conditions your mind to feel better, if that makes
mhm.
sense. Like fake it till you make it sometimes kind of thing. Like get out of bed, for example, and you
Right,
start feeling better.
right,
Yeah.
right. Right. That's why we say, step outside, like the small things. It doesn't we're not saying you have to run a marathon.
Yeah.
Coach Wayne, why do you think so many midlife adults dismiss physical symptoms that may be connected to emotional overload?
I think part of it is that we have gone this far and we have normalized and we fool ourselves into believing that we can get through because we've done it so far. What we don't realize is that it's like a toll. You're riding the highway. The first toll is 25 cents, but as you go on, it adds up. And before you know it, you've paid $10. You're paying tolls along the route of midlife into late adulthood. And
Mm-hmm.
so we are accustomed to paying the tolls. And so far, since we've paid the tolls and we've managed, we think we can continue. But at some point, it's it aggregates, Stacey,
Mm-hmm.
and we can't manage it no more. So I think it's the familiarity of thinking we've managed so far. So
Yeah. Yeah.
what do
Yeah.
you think,
Forgetting
Stacey?
that the body keeps score, right?
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. Oftentimes it is because we don't want to face things, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we just don't want to deal with it. We're already dealing with so much and we're saying like, yeah, I don't even want to acknowledge that thing. I don't want to acknowledge the mental overload, so I'm
Yeah.
not going to deal with it. And again, we're talking about the value of awareness, of paying attention to your body, your mind, your health, your emotions, especially at midlife, because you talk about, Coach Wayne, the difference between aging and saging. And this is such a special time of life with all that we've learned, with the knowledge and the skills that we've amassed, with, the successes that we've had and the failures that we've overcome. We want to see the midlife community really soar, thrive. And so that's why this is important, right?
Yeah.
Your mind, your body, your emotions, that health trilogy is so important to be able to enjoy the richness
Yeah.
of midlife. You've earned it.
Yeah.
It's time to enjoy it.
Yeah. And don't wait until you've had a breakdown to do the takedown, right? And that means just stopping to pause for the cause and fixing it. One of my clients, he takes a scooter to see me now because his car, he blew the engine because he
Mm.
had a signal saying he needed to get serviced, but he just kept saying, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. Well, car just decided that that was it, blew the engine. So now he scoots on over. Don't wait for it.
He scoots
Yeah.
on over. Hey, at least he's still moving though.
Yeah, but listen, don't wait for that breakdown, which in many instances we do, to your point, when we don't pay heed and attention and we just keep going, going, going like the ever ready bunny. What's it called, Stacey? That bunny.
Yeah, ever ready, something like that. Yes, that bunny that plays the drums. I know
Yeah.
what you're talking about. What's one practice listeners can start this week to rebuild trust with their body? What would you say?
To rebuild trust, find a listening ear,
Mm,
someone that you trust in terms of their opinion and a support group, even,
mm-hmm.
someone
Yeah,
that you can talk to.
yeah. Would say I would answer that question by saying one practice you can do, or you can start this week. You can actually start today is that you can put your hand on your heart. You can take a very deep breath in for 4, hold it for 4, and breathe it out slowly for 8, and celebrate the fact that you are still alive and that you can breathe, which means that where there's breath, there is hope.
Yeah. And don't forget, we're here. meaning what we represent in terms of coaches and counselors and therapists.
Yes,
Those support folks are there for you to just call on as well. Use the resources.
absolutely. I think Delaine's point is so relevant that some people are so ashamed to even think or acknowledge their mental stress, because of societal norms. And after all that we have been through to make it to what you have identified as midlife, the reality is the societal norms are going to have to go to the side because it really is about you living your best life. And Audrey said, it's the Energizer Bunny. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. This is why listenership is so important.
What do you say it was, Stacy? I know you made a mistake.
No comment.
Oh,
No comment.
Stacy, are there any affirmations, declarations that we could leave our listenership with so that they can
Hmm.
use?
That is a good one. I would say that rest is not laziness.
Yeah.
That rest is stewardship. It is
Yeah.
stewardship over the body, the mind, and the emotions that God has given you. And that honoring your body is not vanity. It is an act of gratitude for what God has given you.
And I would add, listen to your body. Paying attention is a form of wisdom.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, Stace, before we wrap up, any key takeaways or assignments for the folk that are listening before we tell them how they can find you to get some of the good coaching you offer?
Yeah, I think one of the key takeaways is that your body and your emotional world are deeply connected. Don't try to disconnect them. Acknowledge the connection and be curious about what the two being connected are saying to you.
Yeah. And to be sure, midlife is that place where it becomes harder to ignore the signals. So check in with yourself, as the fellas used to say, check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Before you wreck yourself, that's right. Healing can begin with one honest check-in. That's
Yeah.
it. One next step.
Yeah. Stacy, how
Sir,
can folks find you?
I can be reached if you are watching this on any social media channel, then you already know how to find me, as I'm sure that it is obviously apparent. But indeed, I can be reached at thestacymlewis.com. It is indeed my joy to co-host this show with Sir Wayne and all of the good stuff that he's got going on. What about you, sir?
Thanks, Stacy. Stacy, you see my plant back there?
I see your plan. I was gonna ask you if it was real, but
It is very real, very
it's
real.
looking great. It's looking
Yeah.
great.
It's not safe because I'm a vegan. So
Oh, okay. Okay. So for those of you checking this out on podcast, Wayne's plant looks fantastic and he is imitating maybe eating the plant, which is probably going to be poisonous to humans. So he
lots of
may be
iron.
here next episode. He may not be. Coach Wayne, how do the people reach you?
VIPtransformativeliving.com. And all of my handles are there. Just go on in and DM your man and we'll make it happen for you. Free assessment. Don't forget. Got that going on.
Reassessment. Don't forget, we're so glad that the takeaways were a benefit to our listenership. In the show notes of our podcast, you have access to both Coach Wayne and I. We are here to be a support. Both of us offer free discovery or connection calls. And so we just encourage you to stay in touch. We cannot, Wayne, put up that banner one more time. Let's just celebrate that one more time so that we can acknowledge the fact that we have exceeded 1,000 downloads. We are elated. Could not have done it without you, our very important listener, our VIL, our very important listener.
Yeah. And what that means is that each listener got to give us $1,000. That's just how it works.
At this point, I'll even take $1 a download. You know what I'm saying? Come on, Coach Wayne. That would pay for our technology. You know what I mean? That would just continue to encourage us and allow us to blossom the show and maybe, pay our guests a little something for their time. $1 a download would be great. Don't listen to Wayne. He got a little carried away. Thank you for congratulating us on our 1,000 plus downloads. It has been my joy to co-host this episode with you, Coach Wayne.
Same here, Stace. I enjoy these evenings when we get together and we just make magic happen in the studio. And folks, I mean, we click so well. People probably think we're working from the same environment, but we're miles away, a couple hundreds of miles away, plane ride away. So it's good to see you. Always a pleasure, Coach. So until next time, Stacey, I'll see you at the top.
I'm cheering you on. Thanks for tuning in to Midlife Revolution Unleashed. We're grateful you're part of this journey.
If you love this episode, share it, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss another episode.
I'm Coach Stacy, and I'm cheering you on.
And I'm Coach Wayne, and I'll see you at the top.